Welcome back to Runnerverse. I'm Andrew, and in this video I'm playing through Sinister Motives. This will be the first scenario, which is Sandman. So if you're not familiar with Marvel Champions, this is a living card game in which 1 to 4 heroes can battle against Marvel supervillains. And this is the newest campaign box. I haven't played it at all, so this will be my first playthrough for Sinister Motives. The heroes that come in the box are Miles Morales, Spider-Man, and Ghost Spider. I'm not playing with them today. I'm playing with a couple different heroes, which we'll get to in a second. But the story will be written as though from those characters' perspective. So let's just take a look at what we're getting ourselves into here. It says downtown Manhattan. Morales, there is an issue around 66th and 1st. We need you there immediately. Hey Fury, was just thinking about you. How was your trip? Did you see dolphins? Miles, take care of it. Okay, fine, we're on our way. Upper East Side. Go in from the left, I'll come in from behind. Got it. Whoosh, splat. There we go. Almost as if you were prepared for a fight, Sandman unleashes a deluge of dust upon you, sandblasting the surrounding buildings and filling large portions of the streets with tidal sands. Though people in the area try their hardest to escape, the surging sands become too much as the battle rages on. There are civilians in desperate need of rescue. So we're going to be up against Sandman. I'm going to be playing the standard difficulty because I like to win, and you never really know what to expect when you're up against a new scenario. So let's take a look at Sandman, the villain that we're up against here. He's got one scheme, which means if we're not actively fighting with him, he's going to progress his scheme by 1. And we'll take a look at what his scheme is in a moment. He attacks for 2, plus there's a star there, which is referring to his Sandblast ability. You can see forced interrupt. When he attacks you, that attack deals indirect damage. And if your identity takes any amount of damage from that attack, resolve the Surging Sands ability on city streets. So normally when a villain hits you, they just hit you, but he's going to do indirect damage with all of his sand flowing around, which means you get to decide how to take that damage between yourself or allies that you have in play, which is nice. However, it does have the trade-off because normally if you intercept an attack, if you have one of your ally cards take the damage for you, they might only have 2 or 3 health, but they take a hit for 4 or 5, and all is good. They're out of play, but you basically got to waste a bunch of the enemy damage. Sandman's not going to let you get away with that because it's indirect. You have to distribute that damage. So let's take a look at his scheme as well. We've got hapless pedestrians. Sandman floods the city streets with rushing sands, putting innocent bystanders in great danger. After an acceleration token is placed on this scheme, deal 3 indirect damage. And if this is completed, we lose. I'm playing 2 players, so whenever you see this player icon, that means multiply the number by 2. So that's a 2 times player is the starting value of threat. And you can see I've got 4 here. And then every villain phase is going to get 1 more per player, so a total of 2. And if it ever reaches 9 per player, or 18, we will lose the game. So that is one of the ways we can lose. We can also lose if both our heroes are knocked out. We both have health. This character here has 11, and this one here has 10. And then we do have this city streets environment in play. It says Surging Sand Special. Place 1 sand counter here. Discard cards from the top of the encounter deck equal to the number of sand counters here. So if you take damage from Sandman's attack, and probably other cards in this villain deck here are going to trigger Surging Sands, causing encounter deck cards to be discarded, which doesn't sound so bad, except for that if the encounter deck runs out, it gets reshuffled and an acceleration token is placed onto the main scheme, which means it will accelerate faster. And that was that trigger I was talking about, where we would also take 3 indirect damage. As a hero action, we can exhaust our hero in order to remove sand counters from here equal to our character's attack value. So we can remove sand from the city streets. Because of the specific scenario we're playing, we're also going to be having to deal with this public outcry. Basically, it looks like people are not currently happy with the superheroes in their city. Now, this is an environment. It has this icon here, which is the acceleration icon, meaning the main scheme is going to get an extra threat every villain phase. It also says victory 1, which means if this card leaves play, it's going to be set aside into our victory pile for the campaign purposes. We get extra points and stuff between scenarios. We'll see how that works later. I don't know yet because I haven't looked. It's starting with 2 uses, again, per player. So we've got our 4 uses here. And after a minion or side scheme is defeated, remove 1. So we can earn the favor of the public back by fighting villains. I didn't point out, but at the bottom of Sandman's card here, it says hit points 16 per player, so we've got it set to 32. If we beat stage 1, we will move on to stage 2, where I imagine most of his card will be similar, but some things will be tweaked, most likely. So let's go ahead and take a look at our heroes before we get started. So rather than playing with Spider-Man and Ghost Spider, I'm playing an alternate universe where Mary Jane Watson got bitten by a radioactive wasp and became the Wasp. So ignore that says Nadia Van Dyne. We are going to be playing Mary Jane as the Wasp. I'm playing the cards all legally according to the deck construction rules of the game. I didn't change any card effects or anything. I'm just thematically, I thought it'd be fun to play as Mary Jane as the Wasp. So we can shuffle cards with intelligence icons, resources from our discard pile into our deck. And then she can transform into her hero form of the Wasp. She has 1 thwart, 1 attack, and 2 recover, so we can exhaust her for those 3 actions. I'm sure we'll see that in action. She has all the powers a Wasp would have, so after Wasp or an event you play defeats a minion or side scheme, deal 1 damage to the villain. Also, one special feature about Wasp, as well as Ant-Man that we're not using today, is that she has a 3rd side, which is Giant Wasp. So we'll see how much of that we can fit on the screen here at a time. But in this giant form, she has 2 thwart, 2 attack, and 3 defense. And she says threat you remove using your basic thwart power can be divided among schemes, and same for attack. And I'm sure she'll have abilities that refer to her size changing capabilities. But for now, we'll just be starting out as Nadia Van Dyne. And her friend here, the team up, is going to be the tragic Gwen Stacy, whose father almost fell into a science experiment that would have caused him to transform, but Gwen, sacrificing herself, took the brunt of it, transforming her into the green-skinned Gwen Goblin. So as you can see, I'm playing with Gamora here, but we're going to be calling her Green Goblin as long as I remember to. I might drop the facade and just play the cards for what they are once we get into it, but thematically we've got Mary Jane the Wasp and Gwen, a.k.a. the Gwen Goblin. So she has the ability to have other colors of cards in her deck. If you don't know the game, I'm not going to go back much into deck construction, but you'll see a couple different colors in her deck, whereas Wasp will just have her own cards and then 1 color in addition to generic cards. But Gamora has 2 thwart, 2 attack, and 2 defense. After you play an attack event, remove a threat from a scheme, and after you play a thwart event, remove or deal 1 damage. And her alter ego form here, she is allowed to include different cards in her deck, and also look at the top card of your deck, and if it is an attack or thwart, you can draw it. So both characters will start in alter ego form. I'll have the first player be Wasp. I'll go ahead and draw our opening hands. 6 cards for Wasp. I'm actually going to keep this hand. I think it's okay. I don't know the deck. I did just build these decks. I do have a campaign that I'm currently playing with some friends. We're playing through Mad Titan Shadow, so I have some decks built, and I didn't mess with those decks. So my decks were slightly restricted by what is currently in other decks. We got a couple of weapons. I kind of want to keep them. I might actually dump some cards just in hopes of getting some more resources drawn. So that's our hand. So to mulligan, I just discarded the cards I didn't want to keep and then redrew. So those cards do remain in my discard pile. And now we're going to start out with Wasp's turn here. Not really going to be able to use her ability. I don't think we need to use anything in alter ego, so we're going to go straight into hero form and just flip her over, and we're going to become tiny Wasp here. I'm going to start by playing Monica Chang. So she costs 3, which means we have to pay 3 resources from hand. She has 1 thwart and 1 attack, both of which have 1 consequential damage, meaning if she does either of those things, she's going to take 1 damage, and she has 2 health, so she'll be able to work for us in that way twice. Alternatively, allies are great for blocking attacks, but again, because of how Sandman works with the indirect damage, it might not be quite as helpful. But when she comes into play, we're going to search for a surveillance team and add it to our hand. So let's go ahead and pay 3. I have the Power of Justice, which if you look on the bottom left, it'll see one green symbol there, 1 green star. That is the resource that this card provides. The green star means it's wild. Cards don't require particular resource types normally. It just matters how many resources you have, not what type they are. It does occasionally matter. But in this case, it says it doubles the number of resources it provides while paying for a Justice card. And Monica Chang is a yellow card, Justice, so this is generating 2 of the 3 resources we need. also going to pay with a Pim Particles, which also provides a wild resource, but it's just one this time. But it says after you spend this, heal 2 damage if you are giant, or draw a card if you're tiny, and we are tiny, so we will get to draw a card. And both of these cards that I am paying for Monica Chang with are going to be discarded, and now I can search for Surveillance Team. So we got Surveillance Team here. It's a cost 2 card that would go into play with 3 uses, and we can exhaust it and remove one of its uses to remove 1 threat. And unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to use all my cards this turn because I do get to free redraw every turn. So I like to use all my cards every turn, but I'm just not going to be able to do it just because of what I have. I'm going to play Pinpoint Strike. It's a hero action, so we have to be in hero form, but we are. Costs 3, so we're going to have to pay 3 resources. As you can see, I've got 1 card that costs 1, and 1 card, or not that costs, but provides 1, and 1 card that provides 2. Again, the types don't matter. We have 1 intellect and 2 strength resources. So we're paying 3. And it is an attack that deals 7 damage if we are tiny, which we are. It deals 1 extra damage, and it's overkill. Overkill won't matter in this case. So we're just going to deal 8 damage to Sandman and put him from 32 down to 24. So that was a nice little start. I think I'm going to use Wasp to thwart. So she has 1 thwart. She just gets to remove 1 threat from a scheme. And then Monica is also going to thwart, but so remove 1 threat from the scheme. But because she has a consequential damage symbol, she will also take 1 damage. And that is all Wasp can do. So we will pass over to the Gwen Goblin. And we'll use her action first. Look at the top card of your deck. If it is an attack or thwart, draw it. It is not an attack or thwart, so we do not draw it, unfortunately. Would have really liked that card. This is actually tough because I've got 3 setup cards that I really want to play, but I can't afford them all. So I'm going to change her into hero form as well. Once per turn, you can change forms. So that is her 1 form per turn change. For most characters, it's just switching back and forth. For Wasp, that means she's got 3 different forms she can change between. But we're going to play Gamora's sword. So cost 3. Restricted just means you only have 2 hands. You can only carry 2 weapons pretty much. And as a response, after you play an attack event card, deal 1 damage to an enemy. So that's just going to be coming into play. It's an upgrade card, so she's going to have that for the rest of the game. Presumably, assuming nothing goes wrong, we do have to pay for that. So we'll discard these 3 cards. And then I'm going to go a little wild here, and I'm going to play Return the Favor, which costs 0. And it says discard cards from the top of the encounter deck until you discard a Treachery, reveal it, and deal 5 damage to the villain. We're looking for a Treachery, and there is a Treachery. Oh, I should have revealed this one here. So Now or Never looks like is going to be our card. It's a Treachery. It says Peril. While you are resolving this, other players can't help you. Choose to place an acceleration token on the main scheme or exhaust a character you control and spend a resource. That's tough because an acceleration token is okay, but in this case it will also mean 3 damage. I wasn't going to use this card, but I did kind of want to save it, but I think we're going to have to exhaust Gamora and discard that to pay for the resource. But for our troubles, we do get to deal 5 damage with this Return the Favor attack, putting Sandman down to 19. On top of that, Gamora's Sword says after we play an attack, deal 1 damage, so we hit Sandman down to 18. And Gwen Goblin's ability says after we play an attack event, remove a threat from a scheme. So maybe that was worth it. And that means Gwen Goblin is done. We will end the hero phase and play the villain phase of the turn. First thing that happens is the main scheme is going to gain threat. It's going to get 1 per player plus 1 from this acceleration symbol here. So we're going to add 3. Again, if that gets up to 18, we lose the game. Then, starting with the first player, we will have Sandman activate against him. She is in hero form, so he's going to attack. His attack is going to be his attack value of 2, plus a boost that we might reveal. So I did skip a step. We have to end the hero phase by readying all our cards and drawing up into our hand size. So our alter ego hand size for both of us was 6, but for our hero form, both of them is 5. So we're going to have 5 cards in hand. I can check our hand to see if there's anything we want to do or anything we want to get ready. So nobody has anything to do. And now we're going to be taking Sandman's attack 2 plus a boost. But because of his special Sandblast ability, it will be indirect, meaning Monica Chang can't just absorb all the damage by blocking the attack. she would only take 1 of it. And in fact, we don't even need a block with her because indirect damage means we can distribute it how we want anyway. So I think we're just going to have to take it, and let's reveal our boost card. Now, where we're looking in the boost is only in the top, or the bottom right corner rather. So in this case, it's actually a star symbol. That is a rarity to see a star there. There's usually kind of a triangle shaped symbol. That means a boost. Sometimes it could be 0 up to 3 or maybe even 4 boost symbols there. So that could have buffed up his attack. In this case, it's a star, which means we actually do need to read this boost text. It says, resolve this card's when revealed ability. So we actually get the sand slide. This is all new to me. Haven't played Sandman before. Place 2 sand counters on city streets, then resolve its surging sand's ability. If at least 1 Sandman card was discarded this way, you are stunned. So we're only taking 2 damage. And I guess maybe we just keep Monica in that case. I don't know. Let's just take the 2 damage and go to 9. But then let's do this other stuff in order. Place 2 sand counters on city streets. That's going to put it up to 6. Then resolve its surging sand's ability, which says to place a sand counter here and then discards from the card from the top of the deck equal to that number. So we're discarding 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then it says if at least 1 Sandman card was discarded this way, you are stunned. And there was a Sandman card, so we are stunned. Wasp is going to be stunned, which means next time she would try to attack, she has to instead exhaust to lose the stunned status. Now Sandman will attack Gwenpool, same thing. So we're going to set up a boost card. It's going to be 2 plus the boost. Does Gamora have any responses? She does not. We could actually defend for her, or we could even have Monica Chang defend for her. But again, because of the indirect damage, I don't think it makes a ton of sense. So 2 plus the boost of 0. This is actually a great card to get as a boost. So as you can see, there are no icons in the bottom right corner of advance. So it's just the 2 damage, and Gamora will take that directly. Oh, yeah, I guess our Gwen Goblin days are over. We'll just call her Gamora from now on. But that is not the end of the villain phase. We now have to deal each player an encounter card and see what we get for Wasp first. In this case, we are actually looking at the card itself. So it's a common criminal, has 0 scheme and 1 attack, 3 health, has surge, which means we're going to draw another card after this. You can spend a strength resource to deal 3 damage to common criminal, and if it is defeated this way, choose to either draw a card or remove 3 threat from a side scheme. So instead of doing 3 damage, we can just spend 1 strength resource. So it is easy to get rid of, but it has surge, which means we have to draw another one for Wasp. And we got another copy of Advance, which says the villain schemes. So scheming like attacking means he's going to get a boost. It's going to be 1 plus the value of boost on this, which is 2. So here we finally see some boost symbols there in the bottom right corner. There's 2 little triangle shapes as 2. So we add the 2 to the 1 for a total of 3. And that means hapless pedestrians is up to 7 threat. And that is the end of the advance. And then for Gamora, we've got Gang Up. When revealed in Alter Ego, you just draw a new card. When revealed for Hero, which is the current state, the villain and each minion engaged with you attacks you. So Gamora's taking another attack for 2 plus a boost. Is 0 again, which is nice, so just 2 more damage. But that felt like a pretty rough first villain phase. So we now go back to the hero phase. The first player passes. I think that actually happened before, but regardless of when that happened, it is now Gamora's turn. We might have to lay off the gas a little bit. We might have to switch to Alter Ego, because in Alter Ego form, we're not getting attacked. We might want to set up kind of a rotation where we're not always in the same form at the same time. Kind of level it out a little bit. We've already taken a good amount of damage. I'm going to start out by playing Clobber. So it costs 2. I will pay with this Power of Aggression, which pays double for red cards. And it says deal 3 damage to an enemy. If it's the first card you played this round, return it to your hand. So we'll deal 3 to Sandman and return that to our hand. And because it's an attack card, Gamora will trigger and remove 1 threat from the hapless pedestrian's scheme. In addition, we can deal 1 damage with Gamora's sword. So pretty useful there. And then I'm going to go ahead and play Tigra. So this is another ally. She has cost 3, health 3, 2 attack, 1 thwart, and she does have a benefit against minions. So I could have her fight the common criminal, but she can't actually do the 3 damage required. But basically she gets to heal her own consequential damage, which is nice. But in this case, I think I will pay for that. And one of the cards I'm paying with is Audacity, which says when you spend it, deal damage to the villain. So that's another one. Sandman is down to 13. So we might just be able to defeat him before we let him hit us too hard. I'm going to use Tigra to attack with him, using her strength here of attack, putting Sandman down to 11. But with Gamora, I think I'm going to thwart and remove 2 threat from this scheme. Could do the city streets to reduce how many cards we're having to discard off the villain deck. You know what? I think I will do that. I'm not sure what's better at this point, but let's get that down a little bit, down to 5. And then it will be Wasp's turn. She is stunned. I'm going to start by playing one way or another. The hero action costs 0. And you search the encounter deck for a side scheme, reveal it, and draw 3 cards. So we have to go get a side scheme and put it into play, but we get to pick one that's not that bad for us, and that will help us out. First of all, we get to draw 3 cards, but also gives us more opportunities to make the public like us more. I'm going to get Panic in the Streets. So some of these side schemes are really rough, actually. It says treat the printed text box of each location support and each persona support as if it were blank. We don't have any of those types of supports. We don't have any supports right now. We have a couple allies and an upgrade. And we have an acceleration counter there, but I'm planning to get rid of that this turn. So just put that out and we get to draw 3 cards and also put 5 threat on there. So I think the first thing I'm going to do is defeat this common criminal. Oh, it's an alter ego action to be able to do that. Oh, I didn't even read that. It's an alter ego. We can't do it in hero form. So I'm actually going to change plans here. I'm going to sacrifice a little bit for the future. And I'm going to play the Avengers Mansion. Max 1 per player costs 4, which is a big cost. Genius here makes 2, so I'm paying 4. And it says action exhausted and choose a player to draw a card. So we get to keep that in play. Actually, this is a support. The Panic in the Streets means we can't even use this. This is a location. So that's not going to get me very far. Never mind. Changing plans again. I'm going to play another Pinpoint Strike, paying 3 for that. It says deal 7 to an enemy. If you are tiny, it deals 1 extra damage and has overkill. Although this is an attack, because I'm stunned, that attack would be canceled. So I guess I have to remove my stunned status by making a basic attack, which is replaced by dropping the stun, and then I can play Pinpoint Strike. So I'm going to deal 7 to common criminal. In this case, the breakthrough is relevant, or overkill rather. Deal 1 extra damage, so it's 8 plus overkill means 3 of it goes to the criminal and 5 of it goes to Sandman, putting him down to 6. In addition, the common criminal is defeated, which means we get to remove 1 from public outcry. And Wasp in tiny form says after she defeats a minion or side scheme, deal 1 damage to the villain. We defeated that common criminal. Sandman takes another point of damage. Then I'm going to change forms. I'm going to change into giant form. So again, we get to unfold her into giant wasp form. And after we change forms, I will lay down the law. It says after you change forms, remove 3 from a scheme, 4 if you paid with a mental resource, which I will do. Discarding that Avengers Mansion, removing 4 threat from Panic in the Streets. And then I will exhaust Monica Chang to thwart Panic in the Streets. So this side scheme is gone. We get to remove another counter from the public outcry because we are helping out the city for the problems we created. And Monica Chang takes a consequential damage, so she's done. Wasp is still exhausted from her stun. And unfortunately, we can't play either of these 2 cards. So I just have to hold on to these again, unfortunately, which will end our round. We have more health than Sandman, so that's nice at least. 5 for Wasp, and Gamora I'd intended to flip to Alter Ego. I guess I didn't actually do it, but I intended to, so she should be drawing 6 cards. So we need to add 3 more threat onto Hapless Pedestrians. I think I skipped Sandman's ability that when he hits you and actually deals damage, you have to resolve City Street, Surging Sands, taking cards off the deck. I know we got some extra triggers of that, but I think I missed the ones that are just supposed to happen by default. I'm going to discard 8 cards just because that feels approximately correct. Hopefully not too far off. And then he's actually going to scheme against Gamora because she's an alter ego. So it's 1 scheme plus the boost of 2. So that's 3 more onto the Hapless Pedestrians. bringing it up to 12 out of 18, so definitely have to keep an eye on that. And then Wasp is going to be attacked for 2 plus a boost. Should take a look at their hands. So no responses, so we're just getting 2 plus 0, not bad. Although, again, I don't want to skip it again. That will trigger the Surging Sands, so we're going to take 5 more cards off the top of this deck. Getting down to just 4 left. And then we're going to get encounter cards per player. Gamora gets the Assault, which says if you're in alter ego form, it has Surge. So she gets another card, which is an Unfulfilled Destiny, which is actually her obligation. You may flip to alter ego. She's already in alter ego. Exhaust your alter ego to remove this from the game, or discard 2 events from your hand to discard this obligation. Guess we'll just exhaust her alter ego and remove this from the game. And then for Wasp, we get Rhino coming out. 0 scheme and 3 attack with a star there. 8 health, steady. He has to be stunned twice or confused twice before it sticks. And his attacks have overkill and piercing. Piercing meaning if you are tough, tough normally would prevent all the damage you take from that time you would take any damage. Piercing ignores that, and overkill means if you blocking with a minion, it's like the overkill, or the if you're blocking with an ally, the ally only takes as much health as they have, and the rest goes over to you. So now Rhino is in front of Wasp, and it is back to the heroes. So back to Wasp's turn. So one thing about Rhino that's interesting is, as big and strong as he has 0 scheme, meaning if we go to alter ego, he will do nothing during this villain phase. So I'm going to play Heroic Intuition, which is an upgrade. It's going to give a hero plus 1 thwart permanently. So we're going to give that to Wasp. She can now thwart for 3 in giant form here. I'll pay for that with these 2 cards, one of them being another copy of Pim Particles. But now, because we're in giant form, we heal 2 from that, going up to 9, which is nice. And then we will thwart for 3 against the Hapless Pedestrian's main scheme here, bringing it down to 9. And I'm also going to play Skilled Investigator, and it costs 0, and after a side scheme is defeated, exhaust it and draw a card. So it's not really relevant right now, but I can't do anything else with her current hand. Then I am going to switch into alter ego form. And I'm going to go ahead and use Girl Power. So we get to pick 2 cards that have the printed mental resource. Let's shuffle them into our deck. So I'm going to take back Genius and a Lay Down the Law, because Wasp likes to change forms quite a bit. And then it will be Gamora's turn. So first thing I guess we can do is look at the top card of our deck. If it's an attack or thwart, it is both, so we get to add that to our hand. So I think what I'm going to do is switch to our hero side, and even though we're already exhausted, we can still play cards and do other attacks and stuff. We just won't be able to do a basic attack or thwart. I'm going to start out by playing Set the Pace, which costs 0 and removes 1 threat from a scheme, so we'll take 1 off there. But Gamora's ability says that after we play a thwart, we can deal 1 damage. So we'll put Sandman down to 4. And then we can play Hard Knocks, which costs 3. So I'm going to pay 3 here with Strength for 2 of that and deal 4 damage. If they're defeated by the attack, give your hero Tough status. So it's going to put Sandman down to 0, which counts as defeating him, even though it's only the first stage. So Gamora will become tough, and the next time she would take any damage, all of it is prevented. And then after we played an attack, we can deal 1 damage. So let's let Sandman change to form 2, but I believe we can hit his second stage with that 1 damage. So now his attack is up to 3. But it looks like everything else is the same, except for that we immediately resolve the Surging Sands on City Streets, which means we put the top 5 cards of this into the discard, which there was only 1, so we just do 1, and that's going to trigger a reshuffle, which means we get an acceleration counter on the main scheme here. And it says when it gets the acceleration token, deal 3 damage to the first player. So that is going to be Wasp here, going down to 6. Stage 2 of Sandman has 18 per player, so he actually is going to have 36 health. And then take 1 going down to 35 from that trigger off the sword. And then I'm going to play Fusillade, which says to exhaust a weapon upgrade you control and deal 5 damage to an enemy. So the sword doesn't really care about being exhausted there, so we're just going to do 5. plus 1 more from the sword for a total of 6. And we're just going to let Rhino chill out here until we figure out what we want to do with him next round. So I'll end the round by readying everything and drawing up. So now the Hapless Pedestrians gets 1 per player for 2, plus 1 from here, plus 1 from here for a total of 4 actually. Sandman will scheme against MJ for 1 plus the boost of 1, so 2 more threat going on, putting at 14 out of 18. That is dangerous territory. And then we could lose to an advance actually. And then Gamora is going to be attacked for 3 plus a boost, which is going to be 6. And I believe I can take all of that damage on Gamora and just let her tough soak it up. So then we can put out some encounter cards. All right, so I did just look up the rule, and I'm correct that Tigra has at least 5 health or 6 health, so she can have all that damage targeted toward her and then have it prevented. So if she had only 5 health remaining, we'd only be able to distribute 5, and the rest would have to go to Tigra, and then the tough would block whatever we did assign to Gamora. But anyway, we'll resolve these encounter cards now. Here we have Loose Ends Treachery. When revealed, search the encounter deck, discard pile, set aside area, and remove from game area for a copy of your obligation and reveal it. During that reveal, if you change to alter ego, discard a random card. All right, so let's find Wasp's obligation. So it's going to be Red Dreams, which is very thematic to this particular character, Nadia Van Dyne. Not so much applicable to Mary Jane, so we'll have to fudge the flavor here, but we can flip to alter ego. We're already in alter ego. Exhaust her and remove this from the game, or discard a card. Discard each card with a printed mental resource in your hand and take 1 damage. Well, we're already in alter ego, so we don't have to worry about flipping to alter ego and discarding a card. So we can just exhaust her and remove this. I guess I should check our hand and see how many of the blue resources we are holding. That'd be 3 of our cards. I don't think I want to do that. And we'll just exhaust her, unfortunately. But that'll remove this from the game and resolve the loose ends. And then for Gamora, we have volunteer work. It says you cannot thwart this scheme. Alter ego action, spend 2 resources of any type and remove threat from the scheme equal to your alter ego's recover value. If you're a civilian, draw a card. Unfortunately, we don't have any civilians. I don't think Gamora is an outlaw and Nadia is a genius. They both have a recover of 3, so it would take 2 activations of this, 2 volunteering sessions to get rid of that. So we'll put 6 there. Weirdly enough, doing volunteer work is another way we can benefit from public outcry, but otherwise that will just sit there as another point of acceleration. So we'll switch the first player to Gamora and see how we want to proceed. So it looks like now Gamora is going to be the one with the inefficient turn here. We're going to play Decisive Blow. Deals 4 damage, 7 if you played a thwart, but she doesn't have any thwart events. So we'll pay 2 for that and deal 4 damage to Rhino. We're going to get him out of the way this turn. We did play an attack, so we can remove 1 threat from a scheme. The question is, we actually can remove it from volunteer work. It says we can't thwart this scheme, but it doesn't say we can't remove any threat from it. So performing decisive blows against Rhino will reduce the amount of volunteer work required. The question is, do we want to do that? Or we are pretty in dangerous territory here on Hapless Pedestrians, the main scheme. But it looks like Wasp is not going to be able to remove any threat. So let's definitely take it off of here. We'll leave the volunteer work for now. Then we're going to play acrobatic move. Oh, also the sword triggers. So after you play an attack, deal 1 damage to an enemy. So that will hit Sandman. Then we're playing acrobatic move. Cost 0 and attacks for 2. So that will be 2 more damage onto Rhino, putting him at 6. And then, again, attack event, so we'll remove 1 threat and deal 1 damage. Bring Sandman down to 27. Then Gamora's going to do a basic thwart against the main scheme, bringing it down to 10. It's a little bit safer territory. We're going to have Tigra attack Rhino for 2, and that will finish him off. And because she defeated a minion, she gets to heal 1. I'm not sure the sequencing of that, whether she takes the consequential damage before or after, but in this case it doesn't matter because she already has 1 damage. So Rhino is out, and that will trigger public outcry. We can reprieve ourselves of 1 more token there, and unfortunately that leaves Gamora with 2 cards she can't use. So we'll go over to Wasp here. I think we do want to switch down. Actually, we might not be able to afford it because it's at 10. It's gonna go up to 15, and so if we boost for, or Sandman boosts for 2 off the thwart, we will lose. So I think she has to stay in hero form. Just hope we don't get hit too hard, I suppose, because Nadia's not going to be able to thwart anything. Or MJ, sorry. She's already exhausted and she doesn't have any thwart effects in her hand. So we're just going to have to switch to Tiny Wasp. We're going to play a Wasp Sting, which is going to deal 5 damage because we are in tiny form. I'll pay that with a Genius. So 5 damage, and then we actually have a second Wasp Sting, which we'll pay for with energy. So that's 10 damage to Sandman, putting him down to 17. So we're getting closer to winning, but we're also close to losing. So we're going to be taking a lot of damage. And similarly, Wasp has 2 cards left that she cannot use. She was unable to use Rapid Growth because she cannot use a basic power. So we'll just have to ready and hope for the best. It's a very inefficient use of cards this game. Pretty disappointed by it, but we're doing okay. So again, we're adding 2, 3, 4, 5 threat to the main scheme, putting it up to 15. I think I played the city streets wrong as well. I should have been discarding more cards from the deck because it should be building up more sand, so apologies for that. But we'll try to get it better and better as we go. So we're going to be attacking Gamora for 3 plus a boost. No reason to block with Tigra, so it's going to be 1 boost is 4 damage. I think we will put 1 of that onto Tigra and take the other 3 on Gamora, putting her down to 3. And that means since she did take damage, we have to do Surging Sands, which means it gets another sand, and then we discard 6. So that's 3, 6. 1 advance is gone. That's nice. And then an attack here against Wasp is going to be 3 plus 1, so 4 here as well, putting her down to 2. And that's going to be another Surging Sands, this time for 7, 3, 6, 7. And we get our encounter cards. 1 for Gamora. It's Shadows of the Past. Wow. All right. When revealed, reveal your set-aside nemesis. Put it into play. Engage with you. Reveal your set-aside nemesis side scheme and put it into play. Shuffle the rest of your set-aside nemesis encounter set into the encounter deck. So for Gamora, that's going to be Nebula, who's immediately going to enter play as a minion fighting us here. We're also going to get the Sibling Rivalry, and these cards get shuffled in. And that is another opportunity for a minion we can defeat for the public outcry. If we want that 4th counter. Thematically, with this being Gwen Goblin and all, I don't know who Nebula is supposed to be with Sibling Rivalry going on, but I guess we can take a look at Nebula. She's got 5 health, Retaliate 2, meaning if she gets attacked, she deals 2 damage in return. And when she would enter play, discard the Nebula ally from play. So if there is a Nebula ally in Gamora's deck, and if we had that out, it would be gone immediately as Nebula turns on us. We also have Sibling Rivalry side scheme, another thing we could do for public outcry, but one day, sister, our father will see that I am far more worthy than you. So maybe in this universe, Gwen has a sister. Their father became the Green Goblin and is playing some kind of Spider-Man level Thanos role with the Gwen Goblin having a sister. I don't know. Players other than Gamora cannot remove threat from Sibling Rivalry, and after the villain phase begins, deal 1 face down encounter card to Gamora. Alright, so that is going to have 4 threat on it. And then for Wasp, we get another common criminal, so that's nice. It does have Surge though, but these are easy to get rid of at least, and that is going to help out. Again, public outcry, because we don't need that much. We also have a Sand Clone. Its attack is X, which is equal to the number of sand counters on city streets. And when defeated, resolve Surging Sands. 3 health and 1 scheme. Alright, so we definitely have some things to deal with here as we move back to Wasp. I've just realized that Gamora triggered this precision response twice last round. After you play a thwart event, deal 1 damage to an enemy, or rather, finesse. After you play an attack event, remove a threat from a scheme, limit once per phase. So she should have only been able to do that 1 time. So things look pretty bad. We have very little health. We have a lot of enemies out, and there's a lot of schemes going on. This one, the main scheme, being only 2 away from killing us. So I'm wondering, the main thing I'm thinking is, can we just do 17 damage and end the whole thing? Fortunately, none of these minions have guard. So I think we can for sure. So let's just do 17 damage. Kind of boring, right? So we'll start out with Wasp playing Pinpoint Strike. We've seen this one before. It's going to cost 3, which is most of her hand here. And it's going to deal 7, but since she's tiny, it actually deals 8 and has overkill. We're going to hit the Sand Clone. Not that it matters too much which one. I'll definitely not Nebula, but these both have 3 health, and this one happens to have 7 attack. So we'll take this guy out. Again, the attack won't matter, but 7, 8. 8 minus 3 is 5, so 5 of that will overkill onto Sandman, putting him down to 12. The Sand Clone is gone. And in addition, Wasp says after you defeat a minion, deal 1 damage to the villain, so put him down to 11. In addition, we get to finish out the Public Outcry, so we will get that victory 1. We'll set this card aside, and it'll be worth 1 victory point. We haven't seen any other cards with victory points come out, so didn't have a lot of opportunities for that. But then we're just going to change to Giant Wasp form. And in that form, we've got an attack of 2. So we're just going to do a basic attack against Sandman, putting him down to 9. And that's all Wasp can do. So over with Gamora, let's go ahead and play Clobber. So again, we've seen this one before. We're going to pay 2. And it's going to deal 3. If it's the first card you've played this round, return it to your hand. So this is going to come back to our hand. We're going to hit Sandman down to 6. Clobber comes back to our hand, and now we can afford to play Fusillade, which will have us exhaust our sword. We also get to deal 1 damage with the sword and 1 damage, or 1 thwart with Gamora. Looks like we're not doing any volunteer work. I guess what I could do is check the campaign rules to see if there are any bonuses for certain endgame conditions that I might want to worry about. Looks like there are benefits for finishing community service. Otherwise, we get benefits for having victory points, for having no minions in play, for having no side schemes in play, no threat on the main scheme, fewer than 1 per player acceleration tokens, and 1 for no defeated identity. So we get those last 2, but I don't think no side schemes is going to happen. No threat in the main schemes, definitely not going to happen. No minions in play. How much damage can Gamora do? Now, we really just have a little bit more. So I'll remove 1 from volunteer work with Gamora's trigger because it doesn't matter. We're going to have the 1 damage go to the criminal and then have Tigra finish them off. And I think Tigra does actually heal before she takes the consequential damage. So I think she's still around. Again, not that it matters. We could have the Fusillade hit Nebula and take her out. We would take 2 retaliate damage, putting Gamora down to 1. And then the sword would let us do 1 more damage to Sandman and put him down to 5. But then that's all we would have, and we'd have to end the round. So I think we just have to put... we do have Gamora still to attack for 2. Let's just have her reduce the Surging Sands. And then 5 damage from Fusillade to Sandman, 1 trigger from Gamora's sword for playing an attack event, and that will put him down to 0. So we didn't beat Nebula, we didn't finish our volunteering, and we definitely didn't take out all the side schemes. So it says victory in the reputation track. Using the conditions section, calculate your reputation value, mark that number of nodes, and if we had completed community service, record its title. So that would have been Rebel Rescue. This card, the volunteer work actually is not what it's talking about here. It's talking about Rebel Rescue, which is 1 card that was part of the setup, added into the deck. It just never came out, so we didn't even have the opportunity to complete that one. So I'll do the tracking in a second. Let's see. Read our comic here. It says, "You kidding me? I'm not telling you twerps who my employer is or what they want." What? William, we already know. You know about Osborn? I can't believe that actually worked. Yeah, thanks for the intel, Sandman. Thwip out of here. Outside Oscorp. Flip. And Venom says, "Leave us alone." So next up will be Venom. And then back on this page, we can count our stuff here. We got 1 victory point, fewer than 2 acceleration tokens, and no defeated identities for 3 points, which is going to hit this first star here. As we fill them in from top to bottom, we got 3 points. So we're going to do these 2 top events here. Deal 3 campaign shield tech upgrades at random to a player. That player may choose 1 to add to their deck for the rest of the campaign. Record its title and repeat this process for each player. However, in addition to that, we're going to choose an Osborne tech attachment at random, and it's going to be added into the encounter decks in the future. All right, so we got some shield tech and some Osborne tech. Let's go ahead and follow our, it's double-sided. So I'll do the Osborne tech first and pick one of these at random, which is going to show up in the future encounter decks. We got Arm Cannon, Surge, attached to the villain. The attached villain's attacks gain Overkill and Piercing. As a hero action, we can discard one of our own upgrades to get rid of it. So it doesn't actually add any damage, just Overkill and Piercing, and it has Surge with 3 boosts as well. So that's kind of harsh. Put that there. Also get a D8 so I can roll for one of these. For Wasp, we can choose. I think I'm going to take the compact darts. They have a waspy vibe to them, so we're going to give that to her. And then roll up 3 for Gamora. I think for Gamora, I like this Wrist Navigator. The laser goggles is also good, but I don't think we want -1 thwart. And I think we are equipped to be dealing with minions and side schemes most of the time. So now we're all prepared to fight Venom. Thanks for watching. Subscribe so we can get more subscribers, and bye.